Welcome into Boxing Scene Today here at the ProBox TV studios. Well, as the heavyweight division goes, so goes boxing. Well, right now, we have a great heavyweight division. The question is, who does Oleksandr Usyk move on from after, of course, an incredible pair of fights against Tyson Fury? Where does he go? And there are two contenders right now for that number one contender spot. Where should he go? Well, to help me break it down, Jimmy Smith in studio alongside the champs, Chris Algieri, Paulie Malignaggi. Gentlemen, it's between Joseph Parker, Daniel Dubois. That's the headline today at Boxing Scene. What do you guys think? Because when you look at the streak, well, Parker has a longer streak. The Bacoli win visually looked good, although the guy got off the couch to get there. But Parker, of course, beating Anthony Joshua in London with a massive knockout that everyone remembers. He has momentum. Make your case, Paulie. Who do you think should get the shot?
You know what? I think that if I'm talking about what's going to be probably be more exciting, I think more people would get more excited about Dubois because Joshua had beaten Parker. Parker is always, winning and he's successful, but he's not the most exciting guy, right? He's kind of lunch pail, bring your lunch pail and do the night's work. But I think if I go with who I think is more deserving, I think Parker's more deserving, So it's interesting because it's like, do you go with the entertainment value of what probably makes a more intriguing fight, or do you go with the guy who's sort of been steady, slow and steady wins the race, so to speak, like Parker, and he's been slow and steady winning the race and sort of deserves his piece of the pie. There is also the intrigue of the rematch between Usyk and Dubois because of the, bit of controversy with the first Usyk and Dubois fight. I think that's a little bit overrated personally. I think it was just the wet ring that caused the stumbling of footwork. I used to really, really be anal about wiping the ring when it was wet when I was training because I when you're a footwork guy, it really affects you more because your plant foot slides off and stuff like that. So I think that whole shindig about the controversy with the Dubois and Usyk fight, I think it had more to do with the wet ring than anything else, and Usyk not really finding his footing and then being in position to maybe take some shots that maybe he wouldn't have otherwise taken. Nonetheless, it's a talking point. We're here discussing it. Fans are going to have opinions on it. And there is a viable argument for both sides. But I'm going to slightly hedge to Parker. I think Dubois might excite people more, but I think Parker's deserving.
Very interesting. But Chris, as we get to you, that's the contrast in boxing, isn't it? Is, hey, I've won 7 in a row, or you have the one big fight against the one big name that everyone remembers. And that's kind of the two sides of the coin here. Am I right?
Yeah, and I try not to, no offense, champ, I try not to agree with you on these shows. whenever
makes better
whenever
TV, right?
Whenever possible, I really try not to agree with you, but I can't go against you on this, so I agree 100%. Who deserves it more? Parker. Parker does. And the number one reason I'm going to say he does is because Dubois and Parker were supposed to fight. Dubois pulled out.
Yeah.
The fight didn't happen because of Dubois, not Parker.
We would have an answer otherwise.
Correct.
Yeah.
So Parker stayed in the game, stayed in the fray. They brought in a very dangerous Martin Bacoli, and he looked spectacular, scoring a one-punch knockout. Parker hasn't scored a knockout of a top world-class guy.
Very dangerous on paper. In reality, Bacoli was out of shape.
Of course. I mean, he was like 50 pounds overweight. Looked like he literally came off the couch from the bar to the ring. But regardless, Parker went in there and did his job. Dubois did not. So for me, the guy who deserves it more is Parker, and it's because, like you said, the run that he's been on, the momentum that he has. Yes, he is a bring your lunch pail to work guy, but man, he's got some really big wins lately. I mean, he beats Wilder, he beats Zhang, gets off the canvas twice in that fight. So that was an exciting fight. Yeah. Then he knocks out Martin Bacoli, who's this big beast. You put those 3 fights back to back to back the way that Parker has. I mean, the guy deserves it. Plus, he's already been a world champion.
Yeah.
People forget that sometimes.
And Dubois, although Dubois is the IBF champion himself, too. So,
yeah, of course.
From a championship pedigree, I think they both cancel each other out in that regard.
All right, but here's my question. When I look at, and what I'm looking at right now, when I look at the record of Parker, Zhang Zhang, all right, what was it, 40 when they fought? Right, Deontay Wilder once again past his prime. Martin Bacoli got off the couch. The people that want to look at the last few are those diminished stats I just talked about, guys who may be a little bit past it. Were they more past it than AJ for that big knockout?
They're diminished.
That's the
question.
Remember, Parker has a win over Ruiz too, right?
Yes.
The WBO title fight. He lost the title to Joshua.
Yep.
His resume spans pretty far.
It goes back.
It's funny that what is he, 33?
Yeah.
The guy's been around forever, which I thought he'd be way older. But in diminished in hindsight, because he was the underdog in those fights. He was the underdog in Wilder. He was the underdog in Zhang. and he scores the victory. So in hindsight, yes, they're diminished
because those guys have looked bad since.
But at the time, he was supposed to lose.
That gets underrated sometimes. For guys who come in fights when they were underdogs, and then when they win, people forget that they were underdogs going in, and nobody was actually picking them.
Yeah,
that gets sometimes forgotten.
It's true, but look at it. As I said, retroactively, it's diminished because both those guys looked pretty bad the last time out. So this idea that he kind of caught them right when they were diminishing. Do you see the same thing with AJ? When you look at Dubois, do you see AJ as we're going to look back at AJ as but going in, we thought he was streaking.
Yeah, think about it. Yeah, that's you can get the same. You can run into the same kind of problem with rating Dubois win over AJ. You know, but you gotta take it as it is. You gotta give proper credit for the proper momentum developed in a fight where you go in as the underdog and you win, regardless of how it looks in hindsight. Going in, you deserve the momentum you've built up because people were picking against you. The majority of people were picking against you, and you won. And I think both of these guys understand what it is to do that.
I look at it. Revisionist history is dangerous, and I look at it like, hey, if you got the bet in before, guess what? You got the winning of those odds, not the odds afterwards that we think about. So like, whatever you made that pick before, you got to go with that. When you start trying to revise, oh man, I did it myself. We all do. We're all responsible for doing this the same way. I did the same thing with the Anthony Josh fight. I'm like, how did I not see that fight happening that way?
Yeah, because again, it's revisionist history, right? But I'm gonna be that we're on the subject. I'm gonna give myself a pat on the back. 11 of my 44 pro fights, I went in as the underdog.
Jesus,
1/4 of my pro fights.
Big pat on the back to you, man, for sure.
That's pretty cool.
So that's pretty speaking of revision history, that everybody wants to take away my credit.
But let's
take on my party.
All right, my party. Yeah, get your shine box. Look, when you look at this though, the idea that Usyk, and we were discussing this before we went on camera today, Chris. By the way, guys, just so you guys know, a lot of what you're seeing here is a continuation of conversations we have. We talk about this stuff
all day
on the phone. We talk about it via text, whatever, and this is a continuation of that.
Yeah, we're not winging it.
We're not winging it here, but it's and also we live this. The idea, Chris, that Usyk is one of those guys. I think guys are lining up now because he's the kind of guy to go, I'm out of here. I've made a boatload of money. I'm good. I don't see him going off a cliff in a way that a lot of talented fighters, if you're betting against them, you bet this is the fight to go off a cliff. Usyk doesn't have that style. I think lack of motivation catches up with him before diminished skills catch up with him. Chris, we were discussing that.
Right. I think it's two things. One, I think guys are lining up because if you fight Usyk now, it's a huge opportunity. It's a big payday. So and that's going to run out soon. Kind of like how Canelo's like everyone's
Saudi money.
Everybody's chasing that Canelo fight. And they always have.
And the unified title, right?
Right. Of course, that opportunity. But even if you don't win, even if you don't think you're going to win, you're still getting big money now because you're fighting Usyk and you're getting a huge stage. But also, to your point, Jimmy, stylistically, no, he's not the kind of guy that's going to fall off a cliff. Like we mentioned Bernard Hopkins, a more cerebral fighter, a guy who can slow the pace down, a guy who can win by an inch. Each and every time. For me, I think Usyk is one of the guys where what's going to fall off the cliff for him is desire. When he wakes up one day and goes, you know what? I don't want to dig deep, because he has to dig deep every fight. Yeah. He has to do it every single fight because he's undersized at heavyweight. He's fighting younger, stronger guys. Once that hits him, that's going to be the end of Oleksandr Usyk. And I actually think it's going to happen in the gym. I don't think it's going to happen in a fight. I don't think he's going to be in a fight and he's going to be like, I just don't have it anymore.
So you think he's going to be able to win and then just retire while he's in the gym?
I believe he's going to retire undefeated.
Paulie, what's your thought?
I don't know, man.
You like those Eastern European guys. You like the mentality. Go ahead.
No offense, champ. I'm going to disagree.
I like this. I like it. All right, okay.
We got our disagreement. I think guys.
You think he's going to fly too close to the sun?
I think guys end up burning the candle on both sides, especially these guys that tend to drag it out when they're older. The only guy that I really can't think of. No, there are a few guys that don't do that. I mean, Lennox saw the end coming in a fight. But,
Andre Ward is the most famous.
And he ended. Calzaghe, Andre Ward. Juan Manuel Marquez got his KO over Pacquiao and ended it. I don't know, bro. Usyk is very,
Did
very
he fight
technical.
Timothy Bradley after that?
Oh, Marquez? No, that was
before
that.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, he ended.
I want to make sure I get it right. He ended on the knockout. Yeah.
But I wanna say that I don't think that I don't know, because Usyk is so technical. And he's such a timing technical fighter. And obviously being technically sound allows you a few more years as opposed to relying on athleticism. But man, like you said, he's got to dig down every single time. And he's the kind of guy that, to me, once he commits to a fight, he's gonna go through with it. And I think he ends up getting beat in the ring eventually. And I then you're gonna have your Monday morning quarterbacks like we talk about retroactively. They're gonna start talking about, oh, he lost to this guy, he lost to this guy. This guy is in the conversation for the greatest heavyweight ever.
Yes.
You
got some people turn over in their graves right now.
And he
The
stays
comments are
there
gonna be great
regardless.
for this.
You know what I'm saying? He
He
stays
should
there
be.
regardless, but he won't, because once he gets beat, people are gonna say, oh, this guy wouldn't have done this. Well, this guy wouldn't have done that. Your favorite fighter wasn't fighting at this level at that age. He wasn't. You know what I'm saying? And if he wasn't looking as good as Usyk. So Usyk, I think, just like all these other guys, isn't going to be able to contain himself. He's eventually going to stay too long, and somebody's going to get to him, because there's some hungry young heavyweights. There are guys like Dubois.
Yeah.
There are guys like Caballel. There are guys, like who's the Eastern European guy that's like a monster? Joe Love coming up the ladder. There are guys that, you're just not going to be able to deal with them at that advanced age. Even George Foreman saw it in a fight. He saw it in the Axel Schultz fight. He didn't win, but he didn't lose, but everybody thought he
Which
lost.
he did.
Yeah,
he
everybody
got
thought
beat
he
in that
lost.
fight. Love you, George. But
And after that, it was like, all right, I think I'm out of here. So typically what I'm saying is, you don't usually get the Lennoxes or the Wars.
Yeah, but
and the
Usyk doesn't strike you as the kind of guy. He doesn't strike you as the kind of guy who does pull an Andre Ward, Joe Calzaghe, Floyd Mayweather. Where he's just like, he's so aware of his training, and he stays in shape, of course. But like, I don't know if I don't see him flying too close to the sun.
Where I would agree with you, if he gets an injury in camp and is like, I don't want to come back from this injury.
Like the Klitschko's.
Yeah, I don't want to come back from this injury. I'm screwed.
That was Vitaly Klitschko.
Yeah.
I mean, he had the great fight with Lennox Lewis where he fought his heart out. But I think both of them actually.
Yeah, Vitaly lasted a while longer after Lennox. Lennox retired and Vitaly kind of took over.
But I think ultimately it was injuries in camp.
Yeah, and I think because you got to start the camp over, maybe that would be something that would be like,
just pushes you back.
But if he's committed, if he's getting his ass whooped in the gym, and he's just committed to the camp and he's not injured, I think he still goes through with the fight, because he's just a committed kind of guy.
You brought up one thing that makes me think about, because we were talking, is it going to be Dubois? Is it going to be Parker? You said about Usyk when he commits to a fight.
Mm-hmm.
He committed to Dubois in the ring post-fight. Remember, he said to Turkey, he's like, make the fight.
Yeah.
Because Dubois came in the ring after the fight.
Yeah. Yep.
Very, very awkwardly, by the way. Not a cool move, and it did piss off Usyk, but it might have helped Dubois get that fight.
Yeah. Good point.
Is he committed? Who deserves it? We think, the panel here, that it is Joseph Parker, but Dubois, it makes big money. Could be the next fight. Could keep Oleksandr Usyk motivated to be the greatest heavyweight of his era. And we do think he's one of the greatest of all time. Think what you think in the comments section. But BoxingScene Today, we think was one of the greatest heavyweights. He's one of the greatest heavyweights of all time. Well, join us for boxing news. That's right, BoxingScene Today. As it makes news, we'll have it here. Find out why millions are watching.